We'll move on now to greening the North American auto sector. This is certainly a topical discussion. Steve has held such positions as Associate Director of Energy, United States Chamber of Commerce, Executive Director, Corporate Environmental Enforcement Council, and the Executive Director of the Global Environmental Management Initiative. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, Minister Baird. Buenos dias, Secretary Elvira. And good morning, Mr. Minister. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Steve Hull. I'm the Executive Director of the Suppliers Partnership. It's interesting, as you look at the title of this presentation in terms of expanding and implementing green supply chain partnerships, I want to add a reference to Administrator Johnson's comment with regard to Secretary Leavitt, because we should be putting the word leadership in there too. So it's really leadership in greening that supply chain. I'm very pleased to be here. This activity, the discussion that I'm going to share with you this morning, is a direct result of the resolution 0606 that was designed to expand the partnerships in environmental performance in the auto sector. It really builds on the very successful group that CEC undertook with regard to greening the supply chain project, both in conjunction with the initiative EGIMI, as well as the World Environment Center, very positive, as well as Canada's green supply chain initiatives, and of course the U.S. Green Supply Network, the GSN. That resolution really called for major multinational companies, automobile companies, to basically work with their supply chains across North American borders and engage in project objectives and target small and medium-sized enterprises. Obviously, the small and medium-sized enterprises obviously get lost. They sometimes get lost in the process. So one of the major initiatives is to reach down beyond necessarily those OEMs and those Tier 1s down to the guys that may not have all the resources and the ability to really be able to perform on the environmental issues, but may very well want to. And what I want to do is give you a brief update. First, regard to Secretary Elvira with regard to what is now called AP Mexico, Alianza Verde Automotives. That's the extent of my Spanish, sir. But it's very exciting initiative working with companies in Mexico. General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler basically work together to pull together a group of their suppliers, sit together, focus strategically and tactically on how to approach the issues. I will tell you, I was personally impressed by the Mexican companies that were sitting around the table. There were more as we rounded out our initiative in terms of getting ready to really expand the organization. 3 or 4 of those companies said that one of the reasons they were sitting around the table was they wanted to improve the environment of Mexico. That's a major statement. I've worked with a lot of companies and multinationals and organizations for years, but I've never been in a meeting where it's clearly one of the objectives is it's economics, it's environmental, but it's also doing something for our country. And I thought that was very notable. So congratulations to your folks. The founding members of the I'm not flipping my screens here fast enough. The founding members of AP Mexico right now are Allegiant Global, Chemical Maze, Chrysler of Mexico, Ford Motor Company, General Motors of Mexico, Herotech Mexico, Johnson Controls Inc. of Mexico, Lear Mexican Operations, NEMAC Mexico, and Bosch, Robert Bosch. Okay. There are a series of both short-term and longer-term issues that have been identified by the members in the short term, really looking to work with Profepa and the CEMARNET in the context of various kinds of incentives that potentially could be provided to companies to voluntarily move forward in their environmental commitments. I will mention very importantly too, and I should have mentioned this before, one of the important participants in these meetings down in Mexico was Profepa. And so it's a tremendous opportunity. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the important role that particularly U.S. EPA has played in the Suppliers Partnership in the United States in just a couple of minutes. But that having the participation of Profepa and CEMARNET in the discussions makes it a very unique organization. The additional issues that they're focusing on, compliance, fundamental compliance, again, back in the context with regard to Tier 2 and Tier 3 smaller companies. I think the larger OEMs and the Tier 1s, they know what their commitments are, they know what their global commitments are, but we really have an opportunity and actually need to reach down to those smaller suppliers and help them figure out how they need to address compliance issues. Looking at auto supplier processes, One of the challenges that we've learned in the context of our efforts in the United States with regard to SP is that sometimes the OEMs and the Tier 1s don't necessarily communicate very well with the suppliers, and that there are issues that need to be raised, and those are issues very often that can affect the environment, that can affect a wide range of issues, but there's never been a forum for those people to basically talk to each other. So that's one of the objectives, is to reach down and do that. And then very importantly, communication. It is very obvious, particularly in the context of Mexico, that there are some very leading companies in Mexico that are doing some very positive things on the environment. Matter of fact, I'd suggest that there are others in North America that probably learned some of these some important things from the Mexican companies. But there doesn't appear to be the kind of communication and the sharing that needs to go on. So one of those objectives is, how do you communicate that? How do you share that across borders with both the United States and Mexico, so we all learn together? Also, we're looking at lean and clean manufacturing activities. It was started in the context of something I'm going to talk about here in just a second with regard to the United States, but it's really focusing on finding professionals that can help small and medium-sized enterprises understand how they can both lean and well as clean their operations. So it's all about economics and the environment, but they need help, and we need to try to find ways to help them do that. So we're actually looking at doing a pilot project later this year with regard to focusing on those smaller companies and these lean and green mechanisms. Minister Baird, with regard to SP Canada, the discussions with the support of Environment Canada have now led to thank you so much. Natalie's looking out for me here. Have actually led to a first organizational meeting that we just had just a few weeks ago that included the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association as well as the Automotive Parts Association, along with OEMs and suppliers. They identified key issues in terms of recycling of plastic products and waste, energy management and water consumption, zero waste, and chemicals and products. Those chemicals and product issues keep coming up, and they will continue to come across borders, and we're going to talk a little bit about something we're doing in the United States to address that also. We have an organizational meeting planned, a broader organizational meeting planned for August of this year, and particularly want to thank Danny Epstein and Brad Cumming of Environment Canada for their efforts and leadership in helping pull that effort together. Administrator Johnson, the Suppliers Partnership, I think Administrator Johnson may smile because we remember sitting in a very small conference room back about 4 years ago talking about what SP might be able to do. And it's pretty exciting to see what has occurred. Those are presently the members of Suppliers Partnership in the United States. It's a pretty impressive list. It's a growing list. We would hope that the activities both in Mexico and Canada will expand. Candidly, Minister and Secretary, I think that the membership in Mexico could actually be larger than the membership in the United States. I think there are tremendous opportunities for you all in Mexico. We now have 35 member companies, and we have a series of work group activities. I'm going to take just a moment to talk about those. One, you've already heard discussions this morning with regard to chemical issues and those activities. Under the leadership of General Motors, we have created a chemical issues work group that is actually creating a materials assessment program for chemicals in products that are going in vehicles. The initial focus is actually focusing inside the cab of the vehicle. That's our phase that we're working on now. We anticipate that we will have that report out and process out later this year. Then we're going to move on to what we call phase 2, which is really focusing then on outside the vehicle in terms of friction and wear parts and other kinds of activities. Very positive. Had a tremendous relationship with Jim Gulliford and Charlie Auer and Tom Murray. I said before I wanted to mention this relationship between EPA and Suppliers Partnership, and I think it's such a good example of what can occur both in Canada and also in Mexico. The U.S. EPA is not a member of the Suppliers Partnership. They are liaisons to us. But I will tell you, and I've said this to the folks in Mexico, and I said it to the folks in Canada, and you all understand, we think the world of Tom Murray. And I've told the folks in Mexico and Canada, we need to find your Tom Murray, all right? And in terms of supporting these programs, because that's made a huge difference, both in the context of counseling, support, the things he's doing with the network, and the way he's helped promote us. It's a very supportive and committed, and we respect him very highly. So, and we thank all of you up and down the chain in the United States for making that possible. With regard to energy, Chrysler is leading our energy work group in the United States. They have developed an energy work group that an energy workbook that I think might be very well of interest to others. They've shared that workbook very freely with our other members. I will give you one example of a small, medium-sized enterprise, a little $20 million company. One of our companies took to heart what the learnings of that energy workbook. They're going to save $250,000 U.S. this year in a $20 million company just by going through the book and looking for opportunities to basically improve their energy efficiency. And that has energy efficiency implications. It has carbon implications. I mean, it's the ultimate definition of sustainability. It's working all the way along all along the path. Next one is materials utilization. Now, initially, when we first put this work group together, we called it byproduct reduction. And the story is this and how it started. And this is the dynamics when you get auto OEMs and suppliers sitting around the table and you get smart people thinking about creative ways to do things. In one of our meetings, there was we're very fortunate to have Goodwill International as one of our supporters in the Suppliers Partnership. Goodwill International, in fact, I was just with their CEO last week, and they're very excited about these programs. But in that meeting, Goodwill was talking about the fact that they had to go out and buy Gaylord boxes to put the goods and products that they were selling in their stores. Those Gaylords are just really big boxes. We also found out that GM and some of the other auto suppliers were all sending those Gaylord boxes to solid waste dumps and paying to have them hauled away. Okay? That's where the light went on. And when the light goes on in that situation, what has occurred now is we now have pilot projects in 3 Goodwill facilities up in the Michigan-Ohio area where solid waste is being taken from the automotive manufacturers to the Goodwill facilities, being processed by Goodwill employees who are disabled people who are being hired. I mean, that's a job. That's social. That's the social piece of the sustainability agenda. And they're being hired to process those wastes. Those wastes are then being sent to other suppliers who process them and then sell them back into the auto industry. It kind of gives me goosebumps, quite candidly, because it's the ultimate definition of what sustainability is all about. It's environment, it's economic, and it's social. And who would have ever thought it would have been Goodwill International that would be doing that? And now the CEO of Goodwill, they're actually going through a strategic process trying to figure out how they can do this with other auto companies around the globe, and then also how they can do this with other sectors. Administrator Johnson actually came out to the Detroit Auto Show a couple of years ago where we actually recognized them for what they're doing, and the mandate back from their CEO at the time was, let's figure out a way to do this around the globe. So it's a tremendous program. Small Business Forum, very supportive program where the small business guys get together and they're the ones that take the messages back to the OEMs and the Tier 1s. We're learning a lot of things. We're transferring a lot of technology. There's some very creative things. In fact, there's a couple announcements that we'll make later this year with regard to new technologies and ways to reuse various kinds of waste, and also new technologies that are coming out of these dynamics of getting the right people together and talk. You know, I should go back just for a second. I want to go back to chemical issues because this is important. In addition to Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler that are part of our work group on chemical issues, we also have Nissan, Honda, Hyundai, and Subaru, who are also supporting the activity. So although they're not SP members, they're actually supporting the project, and that's important. I don't want to miss that. So the bottom line and kind of the conclusion is because of the excellent support of CEC and also, of course, our auto companies, we now have SPs that are either been formed or being formed in all 3 countries. In 2009, with continued CEC support, each country will have active organizations that are focusing on these kind of issues. So we look forward to coming back and reporting to you the progress. This is not, it's like a sustainability. It's not a journey. It's not a destination. It's a journey. So we just continue to move on and make progress. And very importantly, the progress that SP has made with regard to North America, and particularly with regard to Mexico and Canada, would not have happened without CEC support. It wouldn't have happened. It wasn't going to happen. And so in particular, Mr. Vasquez, congratulations and thanks to you. Very importantly, Jose Carlos Fernandez, who has been absolutely extraordinary in terms of working with us to make these things happen. They really are quite phenomenal. and it's all about leadership. It goes right back to Secretary Leavitt's comment. This is leadership of the auto sector. Nobody made them do it. This is voluntary programs that those companies are recognizing. It's their corporate responsibility to a globe, and that's the way they're working. So I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Very exciting initiative, and we're delighted that there's an opportunity to ramp this up in Canada, seeing the success that's been in Mexico and the United States. So thank you for your work. We're very supportive.
Thank you, Mr.
Good news is we're only 55 minutes behind schedule now instead of 20 minutes, which we were a few hours ago. So I'm going to be cracking the whip a little bit, but we'll go to Steve.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Thanks for the comments about Tom Murray. I think he's tremendous as well. Although on occasion I like to think the administrator has something to do with it, but I know Tom's the real source of the inspiration. For those, I know my fellow ministers know this, but the proof of the pudding are the results. And you just look at, if you haven't look at the results that the U.S. Suppliers Partnership, intangible amounts of reductions of chemicals, materials, and you can look at it from an energy context, you can look at it from a waste context, tangible results, it's delivering results, so keep it up. And I think it's very exciting that it's spreading across North America, and we can continue to learn from each other and do a great job. Thanks. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Juan.
Gracias. Muy brevemente, mencionaremos también la conclusión de la exposición brillante del señor Steve, que gracias a la CCA hemos podido trabajar en este proyecto. Entre el 2008 y el 2012 queremos alcanzar el trabajo con alrededor de 10,000 empresas, involucrando a la Secretaría de Educación Pública para tener 3 indicadores. Primero, una inversión privada de estas 10,000 empresas por $340 millones. Ahorro, ahí quiero que pongamos mucha atención, el ahorro que se va a generar va a ser de $1,337 millones y bajaríamos emisiones de dióxido de carbono por 845,000 toneladas a la atmósfera con este solo proyecto. Finalmente, tenemos todo el interés de continuar trabajando los 3 países juntos, también junto con la CCA, y continuar ampliando este esfuerzo a futuro. Serían mis comentarios.
Thank you, Juan. Lynn.
Rapidement, moi aussi, je veux offrir mes félicitations à ce groupe de travail. C'est extrêmement important. Il faut comprendre que si on réussit à parler d'une écologisation de la chaîne de production dans le secteur automobile, c'est tellement des grands donneurs d'ordre que l'impact sur l'ensemble du secteur économique nord-américain va être extrêmement important. Maintenant, moi, je me dois de dire que si on accueille très favorablement tous ces efforts pour que la chaîne de production du secteur automobile soit plus écologique, on s'intéresse aussi au produit final qui sort de la chaîne de production. Et en ce sens, je voulais juste rappeler que le Québec a décidé d'endosser les initiatives, entre autres de la Californie et dont nombre d'autres États américains, pour des normes plus sévères au niveau de l'automobile. Vous devez y voir le signal que pour nous, c'est un point extrêmement important. Pour vous donner un ordre de grandeur, au Québec, 40% des gaz à effet de serre sont reliés au secteur du transport. C'est la principale cause des gaz à effet de serre. Ce n'est pas l'énergie chez nous. 20% environ relèvent carrément du secteur du transport par automobile des individus. Donc pour nous, c'est non seulement une chaîne de production plus écologique, mais une automobile plus performante du point de vue écologique, c'est un impact extrêmement important. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre. Thank you very much, Steve, for all the great work you're doing. I was excited to learn more about it, and we hope with your help we can match the great success that Mexico and the United States have had this here in Canada. Thank you very much.